What happened to Sergeant Kelly in Doom 3? How did he transform into Sabaoth? We're going to explore this character's story in the game and look at what happened to him during the invasion on Mars. How did he transform into this monstrosity of flesh and machine? This is a deep look into the story and lore of Sergeant Kelly, who became Sabaoth. During the story of Doom 3, the character you play as is simply known as Marine. Upon landing on Mars, you report for your first day on the job. We see Counselor Elliot Swan and Campbell go in search of Dr. Betruger. In the meantime, you are sent to meet up with Sergeant Kelly. Counselor Swan has a meeting with Dr. Betruger to discuss the issues happening at Mars, which include accidents and many staff members requesting a transfer off of Mars. A lot of people are scared working here. Swan is going to examine the many projects occurring at the Mars Research Facility and evaluate what really is happening here. As their meeting concludes, they go their separate ways, and you continue on your way. Moments later, you would meet up with Sergeant Kelly. He assigns you the task of locating a missing scientist. You're sent to the old decom facility, as he might be heading there, and so off you go. When you do locate the scientist, he tells you that he needs to send out a warning signal before it's too late. He's aware of what's about to happen, and then the demonic invasion begins. Later on, you reach a monitor that lets you contact Sergeant Kelly, but if you look closely, his physical appearance seems to be changing. While it's not a fast transformation, there does seem to be a change in how he looks. One could say this might be a slow state of corruption from the demonic forces, or this could just be the effect placed on the monitor. Your next mission is to link up with Bravo Team to send out a transmission. Counselor Swan is able to reach out to Dr. Betruger from another terminal. He tries to take control of the situation, but Betruger refuses to give in. Their conversation ends. Now he and Campbell make their way to the communications facility. When you reach this location, you are given the option to either send a transmission or decline. You will get a different response from both Elliot Swan and Sergeant Kelly. This also affects what Betruger says later on, but it does not change the overall story. It's just something extra.
You fool! You have no idea what you just did. If the creatures get hold of those ships, who knows what can happen? You might have endangered all of Earth. I'm going to Delta to stop this. Don't get in.
Transmission successful.
Excellent work, Marine. Reinforcements will be here soon. I'll wait for you here at Delta. Get here as quickly as possible.
Transmission terminated.
We did the right thing. Until we know what's happening here, we need to keep ourselves sealed off from everyone else. The monorail entrance looks clear. Meet up with us there. We need to reach the Delta complex and stop this.
Marine, you have just violated a direct order. Get your ass back to that console and send that transmission.
As the situation is getting worse, you would later find Elliot Swan, but he's injured. He tells you what he knows about what's happening here. He knows Sergeant Kelly has turned against them. The demons got to him, and he has no idea how long Kelly was working against everyone on Mars. He's no longer human, so Campbell went after him. The portal needs to be closed. The demons want to take control of planet Earth. You are given his PDA and sent on your way. We get a short clip of Campbell. He's still alive for now, and searching for Sergeant Kelly. The weapon he holds is the BFG. The Marine would find Campbell later in the story, but it's too late. His last words are warning you about Sergeant Kelly taking the BFG weapon.
I killed that pathetic bodyguard, and now I will kill you.
Soon after, the Marine would finally meet Sergeant Kelly face to face, but now we see that he's been transformed into something else. It's unclear when Sergeant Kelly had turned his allegiance to the demons. One theory is that he was working with Betruger since the beginning, which is why he insisted the Marine to send out that signal to call in for more ships to arrive, which the demons would use to get to Earth, something that Betruger says he plans to do later on. The other theory is that at some point in the game behind the scenes, Sergeant Kelly's mind was corrupted or controlled by Betruger or the demons in some way, and at this point he knew there was no victory unless he called for backup, which was a normal tactical response due to his military background. Here's what his face looks like now. It's got a different color to it, some injuries on the left cheek, along with some extensive mechanical or cybernetic augmentation. Only half his body was used during this procedure. It's attached to a large piece of machinery with his flesh stretched around it. This type of enemy looks like something the Strogg would create in the game Quake 2. The BFG weapon is placed around the area above the left shoulder. This means the weapon is fired without the use of his hands, so it could be wired to his mechanical parts. And above the BFG, we can see a small dish with a scanner or maybe a camera. This could be a way to track the target before it's fired. We can see metal plates on a large area of the neck, with giant bolts holding them in place. On the other side, we get a more visible outlook of what these plates are. It seems like this body was ripped open and shoved onto these mechanical parts, with giant tubes in the back of the neck and a larger one connected to the back of the head. The lower torso area has a mass of flesh just hanging down, which led to stains on the lower part of the tank. I also noticed that you'll find a few pieces of human parts in some rooms of this area. Could these belong to Sergeant Kelly during his transformation? Perhaps. Or maybe it was some unfortunate person he ran into. If we shift our attention to his right arm, it's been completely replaced by a mechanical one with a set of spinning claws. This would be used for close-range attacks. A view from the back gives us a look at the tank wheels, the lower base which is armored. Now the left side of the body has a larger mass of flesh, while the upper area is surrounded by another piece of mechanical gear. From the top, we can see the extremely large piece that Sabaoth has to carry, and the base which is connected to the tank wheels is overall much bigger than the upper piece. The last area to look at is the lower section with the tank wheels. It's made up of multiple wheels connected together, but only one section is animated. Sabaoth travels in a very linear pattern. He moves around in straight lines. The arena you fight him on is pretty small. There are platforms that are active only when Sabaoth goes in that direction. Be careful when approaching these moving platforms, as they can pull away and you might fall. Just be careful, because if you run behind the pillars, you might take damage from the electricity. If he does get close to you, he will try to use his right arm for a melee attack. While Sabaoth is a very large and slow target, the real danger is from his BFG weapon. The stream emitting from the BFG shot is what drains your life quickly. This is the main threat in this battle. This stream from the BFG shot will hit you almost anywhere on the stage, unless if you take cover. However, you can use certain weapons on a BFG projectile, which will cause it to explode early, therefore reducing the hits you take from that stream charge. You can use bullets on the BFG shot, or anything with area damage. The sooner you destroy it, the less damage you will take. If Sabaoth is within view without anything blocking him, he will fire a BFG shot around every 8 seconds, so you can kind of anticipate when the next shot will come out. The size of the stage is very small, which gives you little space to move around, and taking cover behind pillars can sometimes backfire because electricity surges will occur. The key to this battle is avoiding the stream charge of the BFG shot. It doesn't take that many shots to win this battle. You just have to land a few rockets and launch the Soul Cube.
Welcome to the mess hall.
When Sabaoth is defeated, His body always seems to be left in the center. This might occur because it's part of a cutscene animation that shows him in this spot. When his lifeless body is left before you, he drops the BFG weapon. Now you can pick it up. Unless if you got it earlier in the game from Campbell. We can only imagine how painful this transformation was for Sergeant Kelly. It's not just about turning into a demon. This procedure involved the removal of more than half the body, then being planted onto a military vehicle as the torso was stretched out on the left side, and then a giant tube ran into what was left of his head. The design of Sabaoth somewhat resembles the super tank from Quake 2. His transformation looks like something created by the Strogg. It's also a similar design to the Arachnotron and Spider Demon from Doom, where it's a combination of an organic creature fused with a vehicle or mechanical parts for the lower section. Other characters that could have been inspired by the design of Sabaoth could be Voss from Quake 4. There's also Jen when she was fused with a creature in a 2006 game called Prey, and also the Doom Hunter from Doom Eternal. They all share some similar design aspects. Even when Sarge transforms into the Sabaoth creature, there are voices that speak out to you before you confront him. They don't say the name Sabaoth, they still call him Sarge. Here is the physical difference of Sergeant Kelly between the original Doom 3 game and the updated BFG Edition. This next one is comparing Sabaoth between the two versions of Doom 3. The BFG Edition gave him brown hair and the textures have more detail. As for the origin of the name Sabaoth, it might have a religious meaning of armies or Lord of Hosts. Both of those meanings do connect with his military background, as he was the leader of an army on Mars. In the Resurrection of Evil game, you can find an office that belongs to Sergeant Kelly. You can find it in the Erebus Labs, which is very early in the game's story. In this room, you will find a few things that belong to Sergeant Kelly. There's a picture of him over the body of a bear, which says he was a hunter, a new shotgun weapon, the head of a bear mounted on the wall. There's also one major difference from the original version when compared to the BFG Edition. In the corner by the door, you will find a game called Sarge's Big Game Hunt, which is from the original Resurrection of Evil campaign. This was removed in the BFG Edition and replaced with another copy of Super Turbo Turkey Puncher 3, and I'm not sure why they made this change. Sarge's Big Game Hunt is you controlling a character with a weapon. You have to get the right angle and the right amount of force, so your shot hits the balloons holding the bear. As you go higher in levels, the bear moves up and down, and there's a timer as well. The other game is one we've seen in Doom 3 already. It's just you punching multiple turkeys for a high score. While this one is more funny, I still think Sarge's Big Game Hunt is more suitable for his office. Some sources, like websites, say that Sarge's character from the Doom movie with Dwayne Johnson was based off Sergeant Kelly in some way. Both of them display a sense of control in tough situations, and they both become corrupted by demonic forces later in the story. According to the book about the making of Doom 3, General Hayden was originally going to be the head of the military presence on Mars. He was coordinating all the experiments with Dr. Betruger and ensuring that the interests of the Marines were always kept top of mind. Soon after the invasion, he would turn evil. He was an early target by the demons because of his position of power. His actions would lead to the downfall of Sarge later on. He was supposed to be the one who created the demonic commandos and led them against the player. The player would believe that General Hayden was the main threat, so he would chase him into hell, and there he would battle Hayden for the Soul Cube. When he returned from hell and back to Mars, it was only then that he realized Dr. Betruger was the real mastermind behind the demonic invasion and that Earth was his final destination. The original story for the Soul Cube was to have it broken into 4 pieces. Each piece was placed in separate sections of hell and protected by a guardian, but the picture says they were barons. As the team started to work with this idea, they realized the Soul Cube's power would be diminished if it was broken into 4 pieces, so they got rid of that idea. Then they only had 1 Soul Cube and 1 very large guardian that was capable of possessing the Soul Cube against its will. General Hayden's character was going to be an over-the-top military commander that became demonically insane, and some dialogue spoken by Betruger during the game was at first going to come from Hayden, but in the end, General Hayden was removed from the game. The team felt that everything that Hayden did could be filled by Dr. Betruger. If too much focus was put on Hayden, then Dr. Betruger might feel less important to the story. The name Hayden would later be used for another character in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. The story about the Martian civilization was supposed to be displayed through visions. These would play whenever you went through a teleporter. It was also planned that when the Soul Cube was trapped in hell, it was guiding the player throughout the story. All these visions were taken out of the game because they did not communicate critical information in a straightforward way. It was then replaced with video CDs and Betruger dialogue. I also want to briefly talk about this room here. When you approach the entrance, a voice speaks out to you saying, "Save me." I've always wondered what the meaning of this room was. You can see a pentagram symbol on the floor, a few bodies, and some type of growth on the wall. So what exactly happened here? If you look at the display monitor from the entrance, it says Administrative Office, Office 132, Malcolm Betruger. So this is his office. There's also a faint image of a pentagram in the back. Some other text appears very quickly. It's hard to see, but here's what it says. But why is this effect only in Betruger's office? It's the only room that appears this way. There's actually a little backstory to this room, and it's explained in the book The Making of Doom 3. This is what it says about Dr. Betruger's office. As the player opens the door, they will see the site of a human sacrifice, the remains of a ritual. There's a pentagram burned on the floor, with dead bodies extending out at each point. The pentagram glows bright red. Rays of sharp light shoot out from the lines of the pentagram. It also says that in the early story of Doom 3, Dr. Betruger was not really a scientist at all. He was a theologian, which is someone that studies religious history or its beliefs. The pentagram on the floor in Betruger's office, the people around it were sacrificed. Even though the final version of the game has him talking about science, he still seems to have a lot of interest in demonic rituals. There is a section in this book that talks about Sabaoth. The original idea was that Sergeant Kelly was crucified to a demon that was in turn sewn onto a tank. The Sabaoth uses Sarge's military training to benefit Hell's siege on humanity, making him both Judas and Christ. The dangling sack of flesh in the lower body is the pelvis. And that wraps up this video covering the story of Sergeant Kelly, a look at Sabaoth, and some other topics within that book. I have gone over other topics in the Doom franchise, such as monsters, the Doom Slayer, original Doom, other characters, various weapons, and the Martian people, so I'm going to leave a few links so you can check them out. If you enjoyed the video, then leave a like rating on it, and subscribe to see more content like this in the future. Thanks for watching. This is Carlos, or Acid Glow, and I'll see you next time.
I look into your soul, and I see fear.